All right, Jackie, I think what we'll do is call the meeting to order. We do have a bare quorum at the moment of 5 commissioners, 5 voting commissioners, 6 total. And that's a bare quorum. At the point, we are expecting several more commissioners. They are on their way and will be here shortly. If they're not here yet at the time when the first case comes, when we're ready to address the first case, I would maybe at that point recommend that we take a short recess till they get here. It's only fair to the petitioners to do so. But I think we can go ahead and start with some of our just sort of stuff that we do at the beginning of the meeting now, right? So this is the September regular meeting of the City of Bloomington Plan Commission. May we begin with a roll call, please?
Whistler. Here. Burrell. Here. Hoffman.
Here.
Sandberg.
Here.
Kinsey. Enright Randolph.
Here.
Okay. Do we have any reports, resolutions, communications from?
We do have one.
Yes.
Mayor Hamilton's joined us tonight for a report.
Thank you very much, members of the Plan Commission. I have a bittersweet proclamation to share with you that many of you know about, but I wanted to be here personally. The Plan Commission's distinguished chairman has let us know that this will be his last regular meeting with the Plan Commission. I believe there may be some special meetings coming up. But I wanted to be here to share with you the thanks that the city expresses on behalf of all of our residents, Joe Hoffman's extraordinary service in the Plan Commission. As you know, he's a member of the Parks Board and has served as their representative on this commission. So I'm going, with your indulgence, I know you have a meeting to do. I won't be too long, but I just want to read a few things in this proclamation, which I'm allowed to do as a mayor to prepare these proclamations. So it says, whereas Joe Hoffman has served on the City of Bloomington Plan Commission as the Board of Parks Commissioners appointee for nearly 3 decades, more than, including most recently serving as president from January 2017 to September 2019, and whereas Monday, September 9, is Joe Hoffman's indicated final regular Plan Commission meeting, and whereas over the years, Joe has attended well over 380 Plan Commission meetings to advise on important community matters such as zoning requests, plan unit developments, amendments to the UDO, adoption of amendments to the 1991 and 2002 Growth Policies Plan, and the 2018 Comprehensive Plan. I'm not going to read all of these. Whereas Joe's ability to distill a complicated development decision down to its absolute essence has helped untangle and then clarify details leading to code updates that have been instrumental in shaping our community. Whereas Joe Hoffman consistently demonstrates courage by stating his position on an issue, even when it might be the least popular position in the room. And whereas Joe has strengthened the Plan Commission with his masterful skills in creating consensus on difficult development issues, and whereas the 32 years of service Joe Hoffman has dedicated to the City of Bloomington Plan Commission have dramatically improved the city's land use, development, and infrastructure, benefiting our community for generations to come. Now, therefore, I, John Hamilton, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, do hereby proclaim September 9, 2019 as Joe Hoffman Day in Bloomington, Indiana. So please thank Joe.
Well, I would have dressed up if I'd have known that we were doing that tonight. It's bittersweet for me, too, to know that this is my last regular meeting, although I intend to, if possible, finish out the UDO adoption meetings, the special meetings that are still upcoming later this month. But I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Are there any other reports, resolutions, communications, Jackie? Okay. Anything from plan commissioners? I'm going to circle back to the minutes in just a moment. Anything from plan commissioners? I would like to simply announce, for the benefit of those who are here tonight or might be watching on television, this just a reminder that this is not a UDO meeting tonight. We are not going to be considering anything having to do with the draft Uniform Development Ordinance. We do have a meeting tomorrow evening, same time, same place, that will be devoted to discussion and possible amendments to the UDO, but that is not the subject of tonight's meeting. So if you're here for that, you should go home and relax and come back tomorrow. Tonight's meeting is our regular meeting to hear petitions in our regular order of business. We do have some minutes to be approved for the May and the June meetings. I'd like to take these separately. If we could have a motion for the May minutes.
Move approval of the May 2019 minutes.
Do we have a second? Second. Okay, any corrections, comments, anything having to do with the May minutes? If not, all those in favor of approving the May minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All right.
Move approval of the June 2019 minutes.
All right. Do we have a second for June?
Second.
All right. Any questions, corrections, comments about the June minutes? All right. All those in favor of approving the June minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All right. That takes care of our minutes. We've already done the reports, resolutions, and communications. We have 3 cases that are being continued and are listed as such in our agenda. Those 3 cases are SP-23-19, which is from the City of Bloomington and involves the site plan for the new parking garage at the corner of 4th and Walnut. That petition will not be heard tonight. It's been continued to the October meeting. Also, PUD-26-19, First Capital Management, 3201 East Moores Pike, PUD amendment to add multifamily apartments to the list of permitted uses. That case will not be heard tonight, will be on the agenda for October. And then SP/UV-32-19, Rimrock Companies, 1901 West 3rd Street and 307 South Corey Lane. This is a site plan and use variance petition involving larger units in a mini warehouse facility in the CA zone. That case likewise is continued to our October meeting and will not be heard tonight. So those 3 cases will be heard in October. That brings us to the 2 petitions that remain on our agenda for tonight's meeting. And the first of those is PUD-27-19, Hilltop Meadow at 1201 West Allen Street. It's an amendment to a PUD ordinance and preliminary plan to allow a multifamily development. We will also later hear SP-31-19, City of Bloomington petition for a site plan approval to allow construction of a new parking garage in the CD district at 489 West 10th Street. So now we are at the point where I think unless the petitioner wants to proceed with the bare quorum, I think we generally give them that option. The other alternative would be to wait a few more minutes for the plan commissioners who we expect will be here. Jackie, do you want to check with the petitioner and see if they want to start or wait for the remaining? We have a bare quorum of 5 voting members is all we have. You're good to go. All right. Then we will start with PUD-27-19, Hilltop Meadow, LLC.
Going to preface this petition a little bit before we give our regular presentation. So when the packet was prepared, we made a recommendation of approval at this hearing based on an assumption related to a commitment that was mentioned at the last meeting about setting aside the 10 units, the homeowner occupied units that could be condoized, and an assumption that we would be meeting at like a determined price point for what those could be to help this PUD to have obviously more than one use. We've talked about that before, multifamily, single family, and then also toward a diverse housing aspect. We have not been able to we have not yet reached a point where we've received that commitment yet. So at this point, we would be recommending that this actually gets continued to the next hearing. We'll give a brief presentation, and we still go through that. And obviously, if you guys choose to, then you could forward on to council with a positive recommendation, but our preference would be, as we've said with other PUDs in the past, that those situations, those details be worked out at this level and then go to council as a complete package. And just, we have not unfortunately gotten to that point yet, which we were expecting to. So Ryan will go ahead and give our presentation and move forward as normal, but just as a caveat to tonight's petition.
To reiterate for Commissioner Kate, thank you. What we've just heard from Jackie as we start our first actual petition tonight is that the staff recommendation has actually changed for tonight's meeting from an approval recommendation to a continuance recommendation because there's still unfinished business between the staff and the petitioner that should be worked out before we, in the staff's opinion, before we take a vote on this one. All right, so we're just about to start the rest of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this petition is for the property located at 1201 West Allen. The property is currently within a PUD. The property is currently developed with a vacant mobile home park. The comprehensive plan has identified this property as a neighborhood residential. The surrounding properties to the north and west have been developed with multifamily dwelling apartment buildings, and the properties to the south and east have been developed with light manufacturing. The petitioner is proposing to amend the current PUD. This amendment would remove mobile homes as an approved use. It would allow multifamily residence as an approved use. The petitioner is proposing to adopt residential high-density multifamily district standards with two modifications. The first modification is to allow a maximum of 65% impervious surface coverage. The current RH district has a maximum impervious surface coverage of 50%. The second modification is to allow a maximum of 1.15 parking spaces per bedroom. The RH district allows a maximum of 1 parking space per bedroom. The proposed site plan includes 2 3-story buildings containing 48 efficiency units and 9 2-story buildings containing a total of 24 one-bedroom units, 32 two-bedroom units, and 10 3-bedroom townhouses. The 2 buildings containing the 10 townhouses are platted to be sold individually. In total, the site will contain 114 units with 166 bedrooms. This will combine to create a total of 8.87 dwelling units per acre. In addition, the site will contain 2 accessory structures, a leasing office, and a maintenance building. There are proposed 172 service parking spaces and 10 two-car garage parking spaces proposed. And the total site will be at 55.5% impervious surface coverage. The petitioner has included 4 changes since the first hearing. The petitioner proposes 2 additional changes to the district ordinance. The first to allow up to 8 fruit trees planted in the community garden to be counted towards the regular interior required canopy trees. And the second would allow for the use of decorative gravel or rubberized mulch as in the landscape bump outs and islands. The petitioner has also updated the proposed site plan and has identified bicycle parking locations, shown here in red, and 2 accessory structures, a tool shed and a pergola, shown in black. This is the proposed front elevation for the 2 3-story buildings, which will host the studio units. This is the proposed front elevation for the 2 2-story buildings, which will host the 1-bedroom units. The site has a grade change from the near north property line to the south property line. And this is the proposed front elevation for the 2 2-story buildings, which will contain 2-bedroom units. You again can see the grade change. This is the proposed front elevation for the 3-bedroom townhouses, which are proposed to be platted for individual sale. Each of the townhouses will feature a garage in the rear, taking advantage of this site's slopes. The comprehensive plan has designated this property as both neighborhood residential in yellow and employment center in blue. As the lines of the comprehensive plan are intended to be flexible, as the city is developed, the department feels that neighborhood residential is the most appropriate district to analyze this proposal. The comprehensive plan offers these points as guidance for development proposal approvals. Developments should be comprised primarily of densities ranging between 2 and 15 units per acre, with single-family being the dominant land use activity, with some multifamily housing being suitable. Buildings are no more than 3 and often less than 2 stories. Sites should be optimized for street connectivity, including bicycle and pedestrian connectivity to adjacent neighborhoods and other important neighborhood destinations. Neighborhood focal points should be created, including gateways, centers, pocket parks, and other neighborhood-serving land uses. Sites should ensure appropriate linkages to neighborhood destinations. Large development should be developed with traditional street grids and short blocks in order to reduce the need for circuitous trips. Support incentive programs to increase owner occupancy and affordability. The proposed PUD amendment will increase the density on the property immediately surrounding, the proposed PUD amendment will increase density on a property immediately surrounded by high-density developments and local employers. The proposed 15-unit per acre will be in line with the goals of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan supports the creation of proposed community garden as it will support the creation of urban agriculture uses within the city. While the street and parking design are not directly meeting the goals of the comprehensive plan, the department feels that this design is acceptable given the size and shape of this site as well as the surrounding uses. The comprehensive plan calls for an increase in owner occupancy. This proposal offers 10 three-bedroom units which will be sold individually. And the proposed inclusion of affordable housing would be substantial public benefit. These are the included recommendations in the staff report as Jackie changed them, our proposed recommendation, but I will read them just for the record. The Planning and Transportation Department recommends that the Planning Commission forward this petition to the Common Council with a positive recommendation with the following conditions. PUD final plan approval be delegated to the Planning and Transportation Department staff. All required bicycle parking meet Chapter 5 United of the UDO standards shall be included in the final plan. The petitioner shall continue to work with the city in a good faith effort to provide permanent affordable housing options in the development. The petitioner will provide on-site recycling for residents. The vegetative buffer shall be shown on the plan, and the protective orange fencing should be installed during the construction to ensure construction disturbances do not encroach into it. The petitioner shall work with the department's senior environmental planner to identify fruit trees that can be used as successful replacement for up to a maximum of 50% of required interior trees. Prior to the issuance of the grading permit, a landscaping plan shall be approved by the Planning and Transportation Department, and all open spaces, including bump outs and islands, must meet UDO requirements.
All right, thank you very much. And as we've already heard, the one deviation from what's in the printed staff report is that the staff now recommends continuance so that there will be enough time to finalize the work on the affordable housing. So it's now time to hear from the petitioner.
Mark Lockley, my family are the developers of what we're calling right now the Gardens, a non-undergrad student development. So from the last time that we were here, we have made some changes. And I have both the 3D, my apologies. We have I have both our new 3D here, and I'll take you through a quick walkthrough of the various changes that we've made and remind you kind of this development. So this development is 114 units, comprised of 48% small units that are in these two buildings. These are 500 to 525 efficiencies, square foot efficiencies. We have two-bedroom buildings, one-bedroom buildings through here, and then these are the three-bedroom, 2.5 bath over a garage townhomes that we are looking to market. A little surprised by the staff's comments towards the end because it wasn't really clear what the questions were. We're trying to figure out what a sales price these are going to be. This is a phased development where we're going to do the leasing office in these two buildings first and work our way south over 3 or 4 years so that we're not dumping a bunch of units on the market. And the townhomes are going to be we're the last phase because they're on the south side of the development. And those are going to be done 4 or 5 years from now. So it's kind of hard to say what exactly the sales price is going to be, other than they're going to be market. So we have our green roof over our maintenance facility, some added covered bicycle parking here. We also added where our trash containers are going to be going in this location, one on the north and one on the south. We also added additional uncovered bicycle parking around the development. And then we added another covered bicycle parking here at this intersection, at this internal intersection. Also, we did finalize with Best Beers the agreement to have an easement across their property to attach to the city sidewalk that will connect us with Catalent. So we did come to an agreement with them. We also agreed with John Jacobs, who owns the Willows, and I'll show, I have pictures here, to redo the transit stop that is in this corner, which is not covered right now, but we agreed to do a transit stop, covered transit stop there. So this is an updated site map, and I have another one if you want to zoom in and out. Again, which shows some of the changes that we made. The market, the garden area here has not changed. We did come to an agreement with Mother's Hubbard Cupboard to provide a outdoor storage area where if residents during the growing season have excess, that they can drop it off in the cover, because Mother's Hubbard Cupboard is just on the other side of Allen Street. So we came to an agreement with them on that as well. So this is the transit stop, the bus stop, which we proposed. Right now, it's completely uncovered. It's just a pad. This was modeled after the city of Lexington did a competition and in 2010, and this very similar was awarded the competition. So it's an angled, a little pitched roof, but it flows through a gutter into a water garden in the back. So this will naturally water a garden in the back and a planter. This will be on Allen Street. This is another shot of it. This is a development which we just started a month ago, which is next to it at 1355 West Allen. But this is adjacent to the development on the north. This is a shot of the covered bicycle parking that we'll be providing, another shed roof with, this is actually a clear type of plastic roofing that will let light through. Again, a picture just of the connection that we're going to have. This is Best Beers here in the corner. And again, another overall shot of the community garden. Again, we have 16 total beds, which will be divided in half. These are 20 by 10, and so we'll be making 32 10 by 10 plots that will be reserved from the residents, not just in this development, but again, the development adjacent to the west, which we also own. So about 174 units in total will have access to these community gardens. Another shot from the leasing office into the community garden area. And a shot of the leasing office. Again, this development has PV on it. It's a net zero building. Therefore, it generates more than electricity and more power than it actually is required to run it. Another shot of the community garden. So what we've worked out with the city, again, as you saw, is that some of these trees that border on the east and the west, we're intending to have fruit-bearing orchard trees, probably 8 to 10 in total, depending on the density, and then these are decorative shrubs and decorative trees there on the north and the south to kind of create a nice community space. And again, this is the pergola, which will have outdoor seating. So again, to run through the numbers, 114 units total. The leasing office, which has solar, which is designed as a net zero building. The maintenance shop with the green roof. 48 efficiency units, which is 42% of the total development, are in the $660 range. 24 one-bedrooms, which is 21%, in the low 800s. 32 two-bedrooms at 28% of the development at $1,090, and then 10 three-bedrooms, which we also, again, intend to condoize. But those, if we rent them out, will be in the $1,300 range. 166 beds total. And we are anticipating doing about 15% of the total number of total number of units as workforce housing. I had just touched base with the mayor again to remind him that we still needed to meet, and that's something we're certainly going to do. So again, there's not only the intention, but we know we're going to do workforce housing at the development. So again, review of the sustainability and how is this development lowering the carbon footprint. High efficiency HVAC units, which are 16 SEER, so they're higher rated than what is required by code. Energy Star appliances, low flow plumbing fixtures. As an example, we do dual stage flush toilets in all of our units. Large windows for natural light. Some of the units will have skylights. Green roof, which is fully covered over the maintenance shop at 1,000 square feet. The solar electric, as I talked about in the leasing office. The community garden, the rainwater capture and reuse system for the community garden. Again, there'll be 3 tanks in the ground that we're going to use to water the community garden. So we'll be watering with rainwater. The orchard, resident composting, which we do at Park South already, at the corner of Hillside and Henderson. There's recycling collection, which is what we do company-wide. All of our developments, all of our communities have community recycling. The bus stop is there, but it'll be a new bus stop with a rain garden. And also, I failed to mention that this development is designed to the dark sky design guidelines, which reduces light pollution. And a half mile walking running path around it. And then the leasing office has a workout cardio facility. Pertaining to this dark sky design, I'll give you an example. This is the Graduate, the new hotel on Kirkwood. A beautiful hotel in my opinion, but you'll also see that there's a lot of uplighting that goes up the building and up into the sky, up the building, up into the sky. This is a classic example of a development that unfortunately contributes to light pollution. Brand new. This is the building that we developed at Park South. Everything is down. All the light, it's a straight line across all the buildings and it's all downlit. There's nothing uplit on the second floor, nothing on the third floor that's uplit. All of this lighting in this deck is downlit as well. As an example also, this is my shop. This is our maintenance facility in this development, and it shows everything. All the lighting is downlit, therefore reducing the amount of light pollution up in the air. And that's very important for birds, bats, stargazing. Another comment that I had received, not from you, but from other people as well, the 48% of the units are efficiencies. You're kind of packing people into sardine cans. This is a 525 square foot efficiency. I think it's really pretty. We have a little bedroom with a barn door, great lighting, great LED lighting. This is an actual unit at 602 East Hillside. Another shot of a unit in the same building without furniture. This is a 505 square foot unit. This one does not have a traditional bedroom, but it has the sleeping area here, your kitchen, living room, entry, your bathroom. Another shot at kind of the area. So these units are very warm. They're very livable. They're not sardine can. I mean, I lived in Germany when I lived there between 2012 and 2015. I lived in a 330 square foot apartment. So 200 square feet less than this. And it was very livable because of the design. And that's what we're trying to emulate here as well. That's really all I have, unless any questions.
We'll find out. Is that all for your report?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're back to the commission for questions of either the staff or the petitioner. I'm going to actually start by asking Jackie for just a little more clarification on where we are on this. There are times in the past when something was still being worked on and not quite ready for prime time at the time of our meeting, where we've made that a condition of approval, and we've said something like, to staff satisfaction or something like that, where obviously if the parties didn't reach an agreement to staff satisfaction, it would have to come back to us, but it wouldn't if they did. Does that make sense? Is that not an option in this scenario, since there seems to be kind of good faith on both sides to?
When we prepared the report and we put in the condition, which is very similar to the condition we had put into the Lauren Wood PUD a couple of years ago, let's keep working. We were under the impression that the petitioner was just waiting to hear back from Office of the Mayor. We've gotten information from the hand department that in fact they were presented with numbers of this is what we would, what seems reasonable based on what other projects have done, and that they weren't necessarily amenable to that. So we're concerned that if we don't get it worked out now, that we're not sure that it will get worked out to the satisfaction of the administration, the city after. Does that make sense?
Okay, so both sides want to have an agreement, but there's not agreement about what that agreement is.
Correct.
Okay. And under those circumstances,
So had we realized that, had I realized that on Friday, we would have just continued the petition. The understanding that I had from communication with the petitioner was that it was, pretty close. We're kind of waiting to hear back, and that was a misunderstanding on my part. And then when we met this morning with other departments, it was like, actually, we're not that close. I'm surprised, that it's going forward. And so we wanted to kind of pull the reins back, let everybody meet together, have time to meet with the mayors, Mr. Lockley mentioned, and, decide what the agreement is
Okay.
going to be.
but it's still hoped and anticipated that
Yes.
that agreement will be forthcoming.
Correct.
So do you want us to go ahead and handle this case on the merits in anticipation of an agreement while still continuing it? Or do you want us to just, what is our role on a night like this when the recommendation is now just to continue?
Right. So that's why I asked you beforehand, because I have not had to do this before, and I wasn't sure if what has been done in the past. So I think we're kind of comfortable with either. If you guys want to do questions tonight, you can. Otherwise, we would like to have an extra month to work it out. So in the interest of time for everyone, we could do the questions next month. They obviously are here and able to present to you, which is positive for them, I think, and for you, if you have comments now, that then they have time to address those. Kind of up to you, I would say.
Right. But only really for things that could still potentially, we're going to have to hear it again next month anyway.
Right. So yes, it's just a couple of, issues raised. So yes, they are saying that there are going to be, the 10 units. Well, then we learned today that those are going to be built in the third phase, as Mr. Lockley described, that's 4 years from now. What's going to happen between now and then? I think there was just some confusion on our end, and what we've been trying to do with PUDs as of late, is ensuring that we are getting some sort of mixed use. And I mean, without those, this is a single-use apartment complex PUD, which, we've been trying to get away from the last few years. So we want to make sure that that's coming in at the very least, and, hopefully at the other end of the spectrum, potentially some commitment toward workforce housing, like Mr. Lockley mentioned.
Okay, so it's
tonight.
both of those things. Okay.
They're kind of conjoined.
All right. So with that in mind, I will ask if there are any other questions tonight that anyone would like to ask of either staff or petitioner. Questions?
For the next presentation, if that's okay. All right. So my question is maybe for staff, but maybe for the petitioner, still about the impervious surface difference. And I know we talked about this last time and suggested, or at least we're hoping for the impervious surface to move closer to the 50% mark, and I wonder what happened to that. So that might be a petitioner question.
The impervious surface stayed at 58%. At 58%. Again, in fact, if you want to, could I? Let me find my mouse. We had looked at a number of different possibilities. As an example, this is one where, on recommendation from the staff, this is one where the parking was in the back of the buildings per se, and the parallel parking in front. As an example, this is another one. If we had had connectivity to the east and the west, this was another example that we had looked at, where we had parking more in front of the buildings per se, and angled parking in the backs. This was one derivation where we were able to keep the community garden on the north side of the development here. But both of these, and this is, again, this was at staff's urging to look at these variations, increase the total amount of impervious surface over 60%. In fact, I think one was 62 and one was 62.5 or something. I don't quote me exact numbers, but it was definitely over the 60% mark. And this is where, when we came to and again, like this one, we really weren't able to fit in a community garden area. Certainly there was a green space in the middle, but nothing with the charm or the uniqueness or the sort of coming together that a community garden would have. And again, this did have a community garden aspect up front, but it's very barrack style, for lack of a better term. If we had had east-west connectivity, as an example, we'd been able to connect through here, we'd have been able to connect through here, maybe even here, we might have been able to do something a little bit more, but again, with one means of connectivity to the north on Allen, this just really didn't appeal to me, and when I took it to our leasing staff, it didn't really appeal to them. And so while this is, yes, a more sort of classic multifamily, development layout. I mean, so is this, more of an army barrack style. This is an amalgamation of both, but again, I kind of lose the uniqueness and the connectivity that a community garden would have, and both of these designs increase my impervious surface more than what we had here, if that helps.
Yeah, so, and I think in the packet, it was still at 65%. Is that, I don't know if that's true. Okay,
They're writing the zoning code here, so they're letting the possibility be to 65% because
Okay.
in the new, the proposed UDO, the allowable impervious surface would be
Okay.
65, so they were
Okay.
matching that up.
all right.
If I could clarify, my name is Jeff Fanyo. We put in the district ordinance 65% as the new UDO is going to allow in the RH zone. And we also put in this district ordinance that, like the new UDO, you can't use permeable pavers to bring that impervious surface area down to that 65%. Right now, we can put in 50% impervious and go up with permeable pavers. So what we're trying to do with this district ordinance is not say we're going to cover 65% of the site with impervious surface. We're just trying to write in the new, what's in the new ordinance, unless it's changed.
Okay,
So that was the intent.
thank you. Thanks for that explanation. And I had one more question about trees. So what's the difference with the fruit tree replacement for canopy? What are we losing in trees then with that replacement? What are we sacrificing in the canopy for that? I don't know if it's a number or a type or,
Sure, so it would be a different type of tree. So the canopy trees that are selected in the ordinance are supposed to provide durability, large trees that will last a long time, provide coverage of the property as well as habitat for, you know, wildlife on site. Some of them are evergreen, so, you know, year-round, where the fruit trees obviously are providing something different, which is interesting, but maybe not getting to the kind of like heat island reduction that a full coverage tree would. It definitely just provides something a little bit different.
how much of a sacrifice do you think this is? I mean, are we talking a couple trees or it's all fruit trees in this space?
What's the exact swap that you're asking for?
I really wanted to do 4 on the east and 4 on the west for 8 total. I think that roughly, I think the development's probably going to have close to 100 trees planted on 5 acres or more. So we're talking 8 out of 100 plus. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not a, we're not swapping out massive numbers here. And I wouldn't want anything more than 8 because, you know, in the fall, to handle all of that fruit and hitting the ground and rotting and having to deal with it is just no mas. So it really is just for around the community garden.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, okay.
Just for some more clarification, I think, Jackie, this may be more for you. Although I'm trying to better understand where we're at. So am I right in thinking that what you're asking is for us to continue so that you can continue to have discussions about affordable housing? The petitioner mentioned, I guess, the start of this project, what would get underway right away is the lower cost units, the smaller units, and those are between, I think your prices were between about 610 to 800 something, is that right?
Yeah, yes, I mean, the first, here, I'll show you the slide. The first units we would anticipate are doing the efficiencies, and those are about $660 a month, mid 600s. And then the second phase would be a combination of the 1s and 2s, which are between in the low 800s to about 1090.
Okay.
And then the last units were going to be the 3 bedrooms. If we rented them out, they would be 1,300. Those are, I think there's a little bit of, just to clarify, the 3 bedrooms, the townhomes, which we are intending to condo, we don't intend those to be workforce housing. We intend the workforce housing to be the efficiencies, the 48 efficiencies, like what we have at Park South. We have 4 units. Actually, there we have 4 units of workforce housing. 3 of them are efficiencies. 1 is a 1-bedroom. So if the workforce housing would be the less expensive, the units that are a little bit more affordable to begin with.
Okay. And so I guess my question is, because I just sort of want to understand what our options are here, where is the gap between what I guess we're looking for enough to, because the choice, right, is to push this off for another month while this goes on versus approving it tonight, right?
Sure.
If everything else
Yes.
seems fine, and it does as far as I can tell, then where is that gap? Because it sounds like there is that commitment already. So can
Sure,
you help me out with that?
we are wanting to secure units of home ownership that have been discussed and said that that was going to happen. There has not been an actual written commitment to doing that, which is typical in our processes, that we get that in writing. Additionally, like Mr. Lockley is mentioning, okay, maybe we are going to do workforce housing in the efficiency units. That's all news to planning and transportation staff. That's not something we've seen, and we haven't gotten a commitment in writing to that. So, yes, Mr. Lockley, is a very dependable local developer. We're not, it's nothing about that. It's just that as far as our processes go, I think we didn't realize that, like the workforce housing, we didn't know that conversation was kind of where it is in the process. And so we're looking to have that wrapped up before it came to you, and that didn't happen.
Okay.
But so I think our number one goal is to secure those units of homeownership on site, and it sounds like obviously they are amenable to that. Having them be built 5 years from now isn't ideal for our, housing issue, but that's something that we would want to continue discussing if possible.
Okay, and so then, back to what Joe was saying, so is this the kind of thing that we could actually conditionally approve tonight on the theory that if that works out, great, and we're done, or do we actually have to come back and?
Yes, we have done that in the past.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Well, my question then is, can we have a verbal commitment from the development tonight that is written in the minutes for him to, a commitment for the workforce housing
Yeah.
plus the ownership units?
Absolutely. I mean, we are committed to do workforce housing here. There's no question.
So what
And
was,
we are going to condo those units, those 3-bedroom, those 10 3-bedrooms on the south side of the development.
do you have a quantity, meaning how many units for workforce housing and how many units for ownership?
Yeah, we're anticipating 15% of the total development, which I think is 16 or 17 units for workforce housing.
On the efficiency side?
Yes, great. Of the 48 efficiencies, we're anticipating 16 or 17 being on the workforce housing.
And on a 3-bedroom?
Those are the ones that are being condoed and marketed.
And all of them are going to be condoed, the 30?
Yeah, you can't, in those,
I
you
mean,
can't.
10 units.
Right, you can't, they're 2 buildings, so it's impossible to condo some and
Correct.
not condo the other. You have to do it, it's illegal.
Yeah, you have to do
Yeah,
the
so you
whole-
have to do the whole thing. We're doing the whole thing.
I mean, I know it would be impossible to give a price for what they're going to go for because you don't know.
Right, I mean,
What
again,
market
that's
price will
going to be at the earliest in 5 years. Again, the progression of the development being working from north to south, and that's just natural because of it's the entry into the development is from the north side, our leasing office is from the north side. And again, I don't want to, we GC everything ourselves. I am the GC company. My father is the maintenance and management side. We try, and one of our competitive advantages, if you want to call that, is we do everything in-house. And so therefore, I want to control cost and to control quality. As an example, with Park South at 74 units, we did that over 3 years at the corner of Hillside and Henderson. And so our intention is to do the same thing here, is to release 30 to 40 units a year so that we can build them correctly and build them ourselves.
I'm going to ask a follow-up to some of what my fellow commissioners were asking, Jackie. So Under the circumstances we're in, which are a little unusual, that a case would get this far,
Yeah.
and then find out that there was this missing piece. If I heard you correctly, the real issue is that you like to have that piece in place before it goes to council. Is that right? Like, most of the time when we do conditions, they're conditions that have to be satisfied before someone pulls a building permit or before a plat gets.
Sure, we would prefer that it be figured out before you guys make a decision. I mean, our preference has been of late, the only one that's gotten through here without a commitment is the Lauren Wood PUD I mentioned. We prefer that you send it to them as a full package, if possible.
Send it to council as a full package.
Correct.
Right, but if we were.
I mean, with your recommendation, I see what you're saying.
If we were convinced if we were convinced the agreement was going to be reached, and we were convinced that everything else about the proposal was fine, then couldn't we make a condition that the agreement has to be reached to staff satisfaction before the case reaches council? And then if
Yes.
it isn't, if for whatever reason things were to break down, obviously like any other condition, then it would become a denial and it would come back to us, right? But you know, as long as the agreement is reached before it gets to council, wouldn't that be satisfactory given where we are?
I think it could work, yes.
Okay, all right. Yes?
Curious, I feel like there was a legal question asked with a verbal commitment compared to a written condition of an agreement, and I think there's a vast difference between that. Would you please explain that, or do we have
I
a
don't
legal
know the
opinion in
answer.
the room?
We might. Is there, if someone makes I don't know the answer, if someone makes a verbal commitment at a hearing like this, if they're held, how much they're held to that, Ms. Guthrie might be able to answer.
Philippa Guthrie, Corporation Counsel. There are contracts based on verbal commitments. It's better to have it in writing because it's clearer for everybody.
Okay.
Though, of saying, look, we're conditionally approving this, and it would be based on a written commitment ultimately being reached, so it wouldn't be relying on just the verbal commitment in any event. That's my understanding of what where we're headed. So-
Right, it's not being signed, the minutes, by the petitioner, so he's not necessarily signing off on it. But again, that's why I asked legal's opinion. I think it gets a little hairy when you start recognizing a verbal commitment as a conditional. Another follow-up question is if we leave it to staff's recommendation and move it forward, some of this could change and staff could be satisfied. So I feel like you wouldn't necessarily be voting on exactly what's going to be agreed upon. And I feel like the job of this commission is to really evaluate these and to leave it in a static position where it could change and meet staff's satisfaction, but maybe not ours. So those are my comments. And that's a question too, that could potentially happen, that some of this could vary and still meet staff satisfaction, correct?
I mean, yes, I think it's possible.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on my right? Any other questions to my left? Okay, let's go to the public. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this petition? If so, please come up, give us your name.
Hi, Greg Alexander. I'm really impressed by the petition, especially dark sky certification. I actually play with a telescope. That's amazing that they just thought of that on their own. And especially a path along the south side of the property line that goes behind the Best Beers to Catalent would be a big deal, especially if that path also went west, like to Millennium Properties or anything. That would be great. But and I was trying to figure out if there's any zoning precedent for whether this is a good location for multifamily, and I was really disappointed by the zoning map. It's all entirely PUDs in this area, as if you guys, I'm sorry to say, haven't done your job. But I know PUDs are your job. So, but This is more a general procedural problem. This should come up every time you guys have this, especially now that the comprehensive plan has walkability as an explicit goal for this kind of development. The petitioner has definitely committed to some sidewalk improvements. There's a gap about 300 feet to the east on the south side of Allen Street, and I imagine they'll probably fill that in, and that'll get people all the way to Patterson. But then, once you cross Patterson on Allen Street, there's no sidewalks on the south side, and you don't want to cross Allen any more than you have to. That's a big deal. That's a lot to put on a petitioner. That really is. But that is a big deal, that there is no sidewalk connection west past Patterson. And if you go, or east rather, past Patterson. If you go west, like towards the Millennium Properties kind of project, there's one gap they'll fill in, and then there's another gap before you get to Adams, and I suspect they won't fill that in. And so you can't get to Adams without crossing Allen Street. That's also a really big deal. There's no pedestrian crossings. There's a lot of geometric challenges. There's an excessively large right turn lane. There's very high vehicular speeds. This is not a pedestrian-friendly environment. It's not really, because of that, it's not a very good place for residential multifamily. And I don't think you should turn it down for this reason, but I think you should expect in the future, and I know this is going to take a long time before this kind of thing happens, but for staff to give you a map, a concrete map of what are the sidewalk connections on through streets, on each side of the street, and what are the gaps, and what will it take to actually fill in those gaps? Because right now we've had such a tradition of approving projects like Evolve, Dunhill, where there is still, people have been living there for a year, and there is still zero sidewalk connectivity. The 17th and Dunn project to improve that intersection so it has crosswalks hasn't happened. There are no sidewalks on either side of Dunn to the south there. There's no sidewalks on the other side of the street. There's no sidewalks if you go west on 17th Street. There's no sidewalks at dead ends at a parking lot. It is really a bad pedestrian environment, and it doesn't have to be, and you guys should have known that before you approved the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak to this petition tonight? Okay, seeing none, we are back to the commission and time for a motion and final discussion. Don't all speak at once.
I'm struggling with the motion because I'm feeling very positive about this project and would like to kind of see us be able to move it forward a little bit more expeditiously. I'm not quite sure how to couch that.
Well, I think I could take a stab here. I'd like to move that we forward PUD 27-19 to the council with a positive recommendation with the conditions that were outlined in the staff report, the 8 conditions outlined in the staff report, as well as the additional 9th condition that an affordable housing commitment will be agreed to in writing prior to the council's hearing of the petition.
Brett, can I just, before we get a second, can I just, I think staff has talked about both affordable housing, but also diversity of housing in terms of ownership and so forth. So,
Okay, so let's say that this 9th commission will...
A written commitment that would describe...
A written commitment that would describe both the workforce housing commitment and the owner-occupied commitment.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Before we do anything else, I'm going to ask Jackie if the condition that be done prior to the case being presented to council will be adequate to achieve what I think is the attempt here, what the goal is.
Yes, so obviously you all know we have to certify this to the council in 10 days, and then they only have 90 days to see it.
That's
so.
Right. So that puts a time limit on.
That puts a time, yeah.
And if it doesn't get, if for some reason the written agreement did not transpire in that time limit, then the condition would fail, and it would, just like any other condition,
sure.
The petition would have to be reheard.
Okay. Yeah, just so we all know. Thank you.
Right. That's your understanding, right? That was your.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
That it would not come back to us
If for some reason,
unless.
if for some reason that can't happen, we end up hearing it again
Right.
next month, which is, at least this way we give it a chance to get to council without us having another hearing. Yeah.
Right. All right, last comments. Brad? I'll let him go first. Brad?
Oh, no, I like it. I think it's a good project. I think it,
Okay.
you know, I think I've seen it enough to be convinced that this should move forward, so I'm
All right.
trying to make that happen.
Any other comments on my right?
Chair, can I clarify something, Joe?
I'm sorry.
I was writing and, that the commitment that they offer has to be the satisfaction of city
Yes, to
staff,
staff
correct?
satisfaction. That was the, not just any old agreement, but it's our usual agreement to staff satisfaction.
Thank you.
It's pretty much the same as my first when I saw this, as I appreciate the detail that went into this, the thought. I think it's a great opportunity and a good development.
Great.
Each time you've come forward, you're raising the bar for yourself, so, congratulations on that. And I think the only concern is the impervious surface, and I understand the limitations to this, this plot of land, but that's, to be able to get something as great as this, sometimes you have to miss out on a couple areas, but just keep that in mind as you move forward, because we do need that green space, that pervious surface to make sure that we're not over flooding ourselves and water runoff, excuse me. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm glad we're moving this forward. This is a good quality project. This is adding to our much-needed housing stock with appeal to young professionals, the efficiencies that can be added to the workforce component, as well as the owner-occupied. It's charming, as you say, it is unique. Quality of design, thoughtful livability. These are the kinds of projects that I want to make sure we're not adding warranted barriers to, because this is exactly what we need. And I also want to say that I was impressed from the very first presentation, which is one of the best and most comprehensive that I have seen as people are pitching their developments to us. And so I was favorable from even the beginning. It is much improved now, and as such, I think it needs to move. Thank you.
Final comments on my left, anybody?
Really like this proposal and think it offers a lot in terms of the innovation in urban agriculture. I think it will be really interesting to see how this works out, and I hope we can inspire more of that. I also don't want to stall this project because I think it's important to see if you can try and reach those agreements with the staff and with the administration about those very important affordable housing agreements. Is it Mr. Alexander? Is that correct? Thank you for raising the connectivity issues. I think that's an important one to think about, and I don't, I have an expectation that you would provide all of those sidewalk connections in this proposal. I appreciate the fact that you've explored and secured the easement to the Catalant and to try and advance the walkability and connectivity to other spaces. And I also realize that one of the real selling points of this is that it's close to a transit station. So I appreciate the improvement to the transit station, and I think that's a reasonable trade-off. The sidewalk issue, as you've raised, is a really good one, and it concerns me, but I understand where we are, and it might be overly onerous to expect the petitioner to take care of all of that at this point. So this is really exciting, but I do want to express concern about increasing the walkability. But I think we've really addressed that pretty well with the access to the transit station. So thanks for that.
I also thank you for raising the sort of visibility of the issue about sidewalk connectivity, because it is important, but I agree with the comments that have already been said and think this is an exciting project to move forward, so thank you.
I'm excited to move this forward. I think we need to encourage good development to move forward. And I know time is money, and when we stop 1 month, 2 months, we create more problems for the developers, and I don't want to do that. I think this is a responsible development. You are working with everybody involved, and every time you keep raising the bar, which I am grateful for that. So I would like to move it forward. I do recommend that you, I'm in a business of real estate, so I do know that there's a large need for condos, 3-bedroom condos, what you're saying. So this is just a recommendation that you build that earlier, sooner than later, and it will go. I mean, it will sell. It will sell pretty fast. So thank you for the thorough presentation and what you're doing. Thank you.
All right, I'll just point out that, as much as it would be great to make every petitioner fill in the gaps in our sidewalks, we have a problem with that because we're not allowed to require off-site improvement. People have occasionally offered it out of the goodness of their heart, but it's not something we can actually legally insist upon. So actually the burden falls pretty heavily on City Council to use the sidewalk fund. So I view those kind of comments as really aimed in that direction. The other thing is, obviously, this is a little unusual procedure tonight, but I think it's only because it came to us in an unusual posture that this seems like a reasonable way to try to get out of it, out of the bind that we're in. And I have all confidence that the petitioner and the staff are going to work this out over the next week, 2 weeks, 90 days, whatever it takes before it gets to council. So if there are no final comments, then it's time for a roll call vote. Motion is to approve with conditions, including one additional condition that was added by Mr. Whistler.
Clarification on who seconded the motion? Thank you. Copper? Whistler?
Yes.
Burrell?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Sandberg?
Yes.
Kappas?
Yes.
Kinsey?
Yes.
All right, motion is approved with conditions, and we now move to our final case of the night, which is SP-31? Yes, 31-19. City of Bloomington Redevelopment Commission is the petitioner. Yes, sorry.
Could I just
that's
make a
right, go
quick
ahead.
statement? This is a petition from the city that is in the proximity of the Trades District, and as I've stated before, I have some interest in the Trades District that could present.
More than just interest, financial interest.
Financial interest.
We all have an interest.
Yes. I could potentially have a financial interest that is, that could come to be here, and parking will certainly be part of that. So I'm going to recuse myself from this part of the proceedings and leave the dais for this.
Understood.
Thanks.
We'll see you tomorrow. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is a request from the Redevelopment Commission for a property at 489 West 10th Street. This is a petition to approve a site plan to allow for a new parking garage in the commercial downtown district. The petitioner is coming forward tonight because there are a few aspects of the site or of the proposal that do not meet all of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance. So I'll step through those in just a few minutes. But just real briefly, this is for the property that's just to the west of where we are sitting now. This is the large surface parking lot that is on the west side of the Showers building. Roger Street and the Beeline Trail run along the west and southwest corner of the property. 10th Street, the recently constructed 10th Street, is along the north side. The east side of this property has an access drive that accesses the parking spaces and kind of connects 10th Street to 8th Street. So the petitioner is here requesting site plan approval to allow for a new 3-story parking garage. The parking garage would have 379 parking spaces, as well as a mix of bicycle spaces and retail. So you can see in the site plan on the northwest corner, the yellow portion of the building would be the approximately 4,000 square feet of retail space that would go along with this project. The Beeline Trail runs along the southwest side of this property. There would be some amenity space on the inside for the public, as well as some minor office space, but the majority of the garage or the majority of the building would be used for a parking garage. So this would be a 3-story design. There are certain elements of it. There are stair towers that are on the corners that exceed the 35-foot height limit within the Showers Technology Park. So that is one aspect that requires approval from the Plan Commission. There are also certain areas of the building that do not meet the building height step back requirement. So the Unified Development Ordinance requires buildings that are over 35 feet to have that portion of the building over 35 feet step back from that upper 35-foot mark. With this being a parking garage, that creates some obvious difficulties with the design of it to require this upper floor, and really it's just these stair tower elements that are at the corners that are imposing on that 35. The majority of the garage is 3 stories in height, so that meets the requirements or the intention of the Showers Technology Park with a 35-foot height limit. There is also a modulation requirement that requires portions of the building that are over 100 feet in length to have certain offsets. There's only one portion of the building, and that is the portion along the north side of the parking garage that is longer than 100 feet. And again, with the building height step back, the modulation requirements create some difficulty with the design and the functionality of the parking garage. So that is one area that this does not meet. So with that, these are just some of the renderings. The bottom slide is the side facing the west, or I'm sorry, that's the east side. The bottom side here is the side facing west, facing the Beeline Trail. You can see the retail spaces along the left side of the building. There's a center area of the building that's got a metal screening area that will be used for artwork. And then there's also covered bike parking in that center area as well. So that is the side facing the Beeline Trail. There will also be bike lockers on the inside of the building, as well as charging stations. The building's been designed to meet the Park Smart requirements, so it will have solar panels on the top, as well as several environmentally friendly design components, which the architect, I believe, will probably go over in a little bit as part of their presentation. So again, a lot of the triggers that are what is requiring this to come to the Plan Commission are related to the design of this as a parking garage, the modulation, the building height step back, and then the other component, the building set back from a historic structure would require the building to have 1-story difference between this and the historic structure. The Showers building is a 2-story building. This is a 3-story, so it would require the portion of the building adjacent to Showers to be stepped back again. With the access drive that separates these two buildings, the need for that step back is kind of negated, as well as I mentioned, this is a 3-story design, so this does not tower over by any means the Showers building. So there are several areas of the comprehensive plan that do deal with downtown development. It encourages creating parking spaces, parking garages. Certainly the Certified Technology Park documents as well help lend guidance to installing a parking garage within the Certified Technology Park. This is one of many things that the city is doing to help spur development within the Certified Technology Park. The reconstruction of 10th Street, as well as the other internal streets, and this parking garage are all things that the city is doing to help promote the Certified Technology Park and get tenants onto the site. So hopefully this will be a key step forward in spurring that development. So with that, staff is recommending approval with the 3 conditions that are listed in staff's report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. May we hear, are we going to hear a separate presentation from the petitioner?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
May we hear from the petitioner?
Good evening, Commissioners. Alex Crowley, Director of Economic Sustainable Development, and a belated happy Joe Hoffman Day to you all. Thanks for your time and attention today as we review our progress in the Trades District Garage. I'll be reviewing some history on the project, including our process to date. Then we'll pass the presentation to Josh Sissom of Core Planning Strategies. He's our project manager on the project. We'll then welcome any questions you may have. Taking a step back, the Trades District garage we're proposing was contemplated in the 2013 Certified Tech Park Master Plan, a document and process that, as you may recall, involved a significant amount of community input. In that plan, 2 garages were contemplated within the district, in addition to parking anticipated on streets and also on individual development lots. I've highlighted in green here where the 2 garages were proposed in that 2013 document. So our project today delivers on that initial work more than 6 years ago, and we're pleased to bring it forward, having completed both the mill and the Trades District infrastructure projects. The Certified Tech Park Master Plan contemplated a tipping point at which time structured parking would be required. It didn't specify exactly that moment, other than to recognize that parking capacity in the vicinity would be key to successfully attracting office development and associated tenants. As I mentioned, it's our assessment that we've reached that point. We've begun to attract additional workforce in the area via the mill. The infrastructure is laid, and we have engaged with a sales and marketing effort to develop the area. We've listed and accepted offers on the kiln and are working on an agreement to sell that site. We have listed the Showers Administration Building and will review offers for that starting in mid-October. And we continue to evaluate offers for parcels at a pace that is clearly accelerating based on the above activities. Which is why in 2018 we started to evaluate options for a parking garage across a number of different sites. In January of this year, we awarded the design work to CSO Architects. In February, the Redevelopment Commission unanimously approved the amended project review form for the garage. And in March, we kicked off preliminary design work for all of the sites in order to determine which one would be best suited for the garage. In May of this year, we finalized the decision with the Redevelopment Commission to pick the proposed site, and since June have been working diligently with CSO, a technical review committee, and staff to finalize the design. The project has involved significant staff input, led by Deputy Mayor Mick Reniason. Listed on this slide are the staff and departments involved most significantly in the design work. Additionally, we've included project team members from outside of city staff. These stakeholders have provided important feedback along the way for this important community investment, and include the Chamber, the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation, City Council, the Redevelopment Commission, and the Parking Commission, among others. We're also pleased to work with our project team partners on the Trades District Garage. These include CSO Architects, Garmong as construction manager and contractor, and if you recall, this and the 4th Street Garage are the first time the city is using the recently available tool for municipalities, which is a construction manager as contractor, which allows us to more effectively manage risk by transferring the risk of construction costs to the contractor. And any reductions in that cost are shared between us and the contractor. So we are managing against the overrun risk, but we're recouping a portion of the underrun benefits if they return to us. And as I mentioned earlier, Core Planning Strategies is providing us project management expertise, which they bring from a significant portfolio of parking-related projects. And Energy Systems Group is partnering with the city to install solar panels on the structure as part of the city's energy savings contract. Before I pass this to Josh, let me conclude by reminding you of the commitments we've made to the Redevelopment Commission regarding this garage. Commitments we're pleased to integrate in the design. And they include at least 6 electric vehicle charging stations, and then conduit to be able to expand that as demand requires it. A preference for locating the garage on city-owned property, which this is, solar panels that will cover the electric needs of the facility, bicycle parking for a minimum of 30 bikes, 10 of which spots will be bike lockers, either inside or outside as the design demands. 25% of all the parking spaces in the garage designed for use by compact vehicles, dedicated carpool parking, ParkSmart sustainability certification with the goal of achieving silver, depending on ultimate garage design, 1 public restroom, a maintenance and caretaking plan for the life of the garage, and that the design will include public art and should be architecturally significant such that it enhances and highlights the trades district. Thank you for your time. I'll now ask Josh to come to the podium to take you through the details of the garage and the design.
Congratulations, Mr. Hoffman. So thank you. We ended the last slide with the intent that this garage, put your mic. Check. Much better. So we left off with the intent that this garage should be architecturally significant yet match the Showers District. And in fact, that is a design scheme that you're going to see here shortly. You've already seen the renderings. We'll talk more about it. The recent revisions here, we won't go through all of them, but suffice it to say that we have had an extensive amount of staff feedback developmentally through the course of this project. We naturally invite that, and we assess it for its viability, both from a budgeting standpoint and a functional standpoint. And you'll see as we go through the design where some of those pieces of input have been integrated into the design. So the existing conditions, what is it that motivates us? As Mr. Raper would tell you, what is the architectural language that we hear and see? And in fact, it is a sawtooth design. We're all in this facility now. We're all very familiar with it, but I think the minutes should reflect the fact that it is exactly a sawtooth design that we are trying to mimic, as well as the exterior red brick facade, a similar treatment of sills and lintels, so that what you will see does match the Showers theme as a campus. Moving on to our design, you'll see those saw teeth there at the top of the building in the top left. That's the east elevation. There is a materials key that may be somewhat hard to read. If you'd like me to run through that, simply ask during Q&A. Happy to do that. But in the spirit of the time, we'll just keep moving. The west elevation that you see a lower level. That is, in fact, the retail portion that abuts the B line. So you will see when you look at the site plan that there is a portion in yellow that is the dedicated required retail area. That is a necessity for us to design a garage. Here is the south elevation, so that would be the entrance on the top coming in from the existing parking field that we know today, heading north. And then the north elevation is actually what would abut 10th Street. So that would be your entrance off of 10th. And again, the retail on the right, single level. So we talked about the office layout. The yellow is the retail area, the gray is the parking garage itself. The blue are the public areas. Those would be the restrooms. They are also the garage management office, which we do not intend to be a large-scale office, but rather a public service utility there if folks want to buy their parking garage term agreements, which would require contracts, things of that nature. But this is largely a pay-and-go type facility. That's its design. It's important to note that the reason why we located the blue, particularly the public service utilities, is because they, A, abut the B line, and B, at the request of CFC, which asked that they be located on the west side of the building. And so thus we have honored that request. Oh, I might point out that as you look through the floors which will proceed, there's a key, the legend, up in the top left. You'll see that the black circle indicates a charging station, a dash, potential artwork locations, and I described the color schemes. Parking data is on the right at 379 cars, standard at 352, compact at 20, and ADA handicap at 7. So now we'll go through the garage layout. There is a minor lower level that does drop down. It's not an excavated dig, but for those who are familiar with the site, it does grade due north. So this allows us to actually grade flat, and we end up picking effectively a lower level. We skipped the first level because you just saw it. This is the second level. They are pretty uniform. The third and the fourth. You'll see that the fourth level is just a half of a deck. It terminates, and I'll explain to you the importance of that here in just a moment. As we talk about the solar, we're still configuring what the helioscope looks like. That's the potentiality of a site and its solar energy generation. You may recall from a 4th Street presentation that there is a direct correlation between the amount of solar array that can be put in place tied to the uses, such as retail. That's a big driver. So we determine what kind of prospective retail uses we'll have that has a great amount of feed and determination into what type of solar field that we would have. Because the nature of the design is sawtooth, we want to try and preserve that to the maximum of our ability. A solar array typically sits flat. So we've given a lot of thought into how we would configure a solar array so it most complemented the design and would least conflict with the sawtooth roof. So as you'll see here, we have 2 different configurations that we're contemplating. The first runs along what I would call the spine of the building. So at its height, you would probably not see much of that from the street level whatsoever. Then there is another configuration that could be chosen at the north end of the building. If you look at that diagram, you'll recall perhaps that the northeast corner, the east side as it moves to the northeast corner is sawtooth. The north elevation is flat, so that would complement a flat solar structure or a frame array. So the site's plan and landscaping, we're abutting the B-line. So we already have talked about the size of the retail at about approximately 4,000 square feet, north and south vehicular entries. We have an 18-foot bidirectional alley, which is the causeway that goes from 10th Street down to the parking field. In fact, that is now 20 feet. So I just want to clarify that we were able to expand it, yet still maintain one of the big asks of staff, which was a sidewalk that runs uninterrupted north and south along the east edge of the garage. It also has plantings, which we'll get to in just a moment. There was talk about a potential side loading entry into the garage, and the illustration there is just to show you why that is not an ideal liability to have. Because of the tight constraints of that alleyway, as we call it, or I'm sorry, I can't remember. Eric, what'd you refer to that as?
It's just a drive that connects 10th to 8th.
Okay, yeah, driveway, alley, what have you. We want that to be uninterrupted. We don't want cars swinging out in a tight radius and causing any jams. It naturally would stack, and those are all a lot of negative reasons why we would not have a side load and in fact keep it north. So here's the landscape plan. We talked about the buffer between the B-line and garage being maintained. This was a big ask of staff, and there are a lot of plantings there that are sensitive in nature. So we intend to keep that buffer. There will be a small notch out in the curbing that will allow access into what we term the plaza of the garage, which is that retail section. Well, you'll see it here momentarily. But by and large, that green space is uninterrupted and the buffer stays. I just spoke to you about the plantings that run along the east side of the garage. You'll see them circled in green now. There's a number of trees that we intend to plant there. And then last is the plaza, expected to mimic the B-line as far as pavers and feel. So you're not going to see a big break of theme. You're actually going to see a continuous theme rolled through into the plaza. So the look feel should be well maintained. So these are upcoming public reviews. We did supply this design last Friday, I believe, on the 30th. Is that right? No, I guess maybe it was 2 Fridays ago. Whatever, August 30th. Time is flying. And then we are here tonight. And then the look forward, provided that we were to gain your approval tonight, we would then move into the BZA for the variance requests. and then move into our pre-bid construction documentation. So with that all being said, certainly welcome any questions, as does the rest of the group. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, I'll start this time on my right to see if there are any questions of either staff or this petitioner. All right, questions from my left. Yep.
I wondered about the solar panels, and can you again tell me, the retail space is flat, the retail roof is flat, and that's the hope is to put solar panels there, is that right?
A very good question. That is not what's being proposed. Let me
Okay.
cycle back to that slide here.
Sorry.
Back her up a little bit. Okay. So that is, if you look there, the faint, we call them blisters in construction on the left that you see that's not colored, that's the
Yeah,
retail area.
that's the retail, okay.
So what we're contemplating is having it on top of the garage, much like
Okay.
the other garages around the city.
So that means, I'm just trying to get a sense, I'm imagining the flat roof retail, and then the sawtooth of showers then would still be visible from, say, the Beeline side? Is that the idea, to preserve the view of the sawtooth in the showers building, this one itself, or would you see only the garage sawtooth?
Well, I think it depends on your vantage point from the Beeline, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, and your proximity to the garage itself. The closer you'll get to the garage, obviously, the more of your visibility it will contain or take up. But I think ultimately what
Yeah.
we're,
What, can you,
I'm not sure
Eric, are you
about
flipping through those? Yeah,
I don't think
is
that was
that,
me.
what's the, yeah, that one, the west elevation, so that sawtooth is from the garage that I'm looking at, and then the fainter one is the actual building, is this building. Is that right?
no, actually, I think what you're seeing there is the back of the garage with the same sawtooth structure. So you're seeing it replicated first at the top of the retail, then you're seeing replicated again, and then beyond that would be the showers. This building will be taller than the showers office building, as Eric had
Yeah.
mentioned. So the ability to see it when you're up on the garage, I think, is going to be limited. But then due south, naturally, you're going to pick up the same sawtooth structure, so there's going to be continuity.
And the purpose of the flat roof is, on the retail space, is just because that's, I don't know, why not do sawtooth on that? I mean, I don't want to overdo the sawtooth, but I'm just curious.
Well, sawtooth, that's a good question. The retail is designed to be more of a retail appearance, so it's a walk-up storefront feel. If you were to stagger the top of that, it would cause great complexities with the banding, the storefront treatments. I mean, I can let Joe, the Raper, talk to you more about that if it's a deeper dive. But that's the nature of it. It's a simple,
Okay.
and budget factors in, of course, too.
Yeah, okay, all right. And then one other question about just the timeline and for the project itself. What's the proposed, how long will this take? How much of a disruption for the parking and other things that go on in that current space? How long will it take?
That's another good question, and Nick may wish to answer that. I will tell you that the city is making great efforts to make sure that anyone who's inconvenienced through the course of this project, particularly those who are accustomed to parking in the field, will be accommodated through a parking plan. But,
Mick Renneisen, Deputy Mayor. We've actually worked out an agreement with CFC Jim Murphy, their president's here tonight, and he may speak when it's public comment, to all the parkers that are tenants of the CFC side of the building will be moved over into the Trades District parking, and they're receptive to that arrangement, so the disruption should be minimal because everybody will have another place to park while the structure's going up. It's about a 12-month build, so whenever we have approval through all the steps and the bid documents come back and we get started, it's about 12 months from then that we should be done. Our promise was to have it done by the end of 2020.
Great, okay. And then one last maybe speculative question about the expectations for parking for the retail space, since it really is right up against the street and the Beeline. I can't really still get a fix on how far that retail space will go north, but it looks to me like the expectation would be the retail space parking would be street then on Rogers, and then perhaps obviously the parking garage that's now behind it.
Well, you hit on one with that last one, yes. The garage will be very helpful for parking. But in all seriousness, think of the nature of what we know it as today, which is it currently accommodates a lot of parking.
Yep.
So the expectation is that that same parking field will serve the retail component as well. And I think there is peripheral parking in the areas we've studied the parking plan. There's a lot of street front parking. And I don't know what the eventual development will be due north, but perhaps there may be parking in that eventual green space today.
Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on my left?
Typically, solar panels lay flat.
In their installation here, yes. Yes, here in Bloomington, they do.
Okay. I'm by no means an expert, but I thought, based on your latitude, that there was an angle to it, like the ones on the roof that are of the Showers building itself.
Well, that is correct, but in the current garages, we do not have any angled solar arrays. So
Okay.
that's certainly something we can consider. It all factors into the agreement that we have with the SG and what kind of accommodations can be made. When you have an open span area such as the rooftop, this is another factor into the design of the solar arrays. You're spanning a lot of space because of the nature of the vehicles. You're not on a hard roof. On a hard roof, you have the ability to set up a lot of different framing solutions. On the roof of a parking garage, you've got to have a lot of clear space. So that requires that you have a long span frame. So the ability to articulate is diminished to some degree.
And then, I guess still on angles, the current Showers building, the sawtooth points are very much at like a 90-degree angle. The illustrations in the graphic, the tip of the sawtooth is a much more obtuse angle. I'm wondering if that's intentional or just something in the graphics. Is your intention to have the same angle as is on the Showers building?
Well, actually, why don't I ask Mr. Raper to come up here? I think he can address that directly.
Good evening. I'm Joe Raper, project manager for CSO. We do not want to replicate those of us that are kind of in the historic business. We want to be a little different, but we want to honor the image that is there. We're working with the precasters to make the panels as inexpensive as possible, and that is the geometry that we think we can deliver.
Okay, so that's an intentional.
It's an intentional design.
Sure. And then my last question, I'm wondering, what's the elevation difference between the plaza and the Beeline? Does the plaza sitting below the Beeline?
The plaza is going to step down. It will be sloped. We're matching the grade entrance at 10th Street, and there's a couple of drainage structures out there that will be matching, and then it will come around and we'll step past the retail. So basically, we're going to follow the existing terrain that's out there. This is a little different than 4th Street, where we had quite a bit of difference from 4th to 3rd. This is a lot more gradual. So it will start up at the 10th Street corner at the same level, and then we'll adjust as we come down. As you can see, if they configure the retail in the east-west direction, it can also be reconfigured in the north-south direction. We are showing it kind of worst case for grading, because that's what we want to design to. But we will slope that plaza back and follow the Beeline Trail grade.
What I'm getting to there is it looks like the connection you have between the plaza and the Beeline that runs kind of north-south has stairs in it. And I'm trying to figure out why we can't have an accessible connection between the plaza and the Beeline.
Oh, I can tell you we will have an accessible connection.
Okay.
The north is definitely accessible. The south, we still are developing the grading out there, so we have not completed the final topography for the structure yet.
So the north is accessible if you went up the Beeline and along the sidewalk and looped around back
Yes.
through the plaza.
You
But
could
the
enter
south
the
is not shown
garage
accessible.
on a bike, or you can enter the retail on both the north and the west without any issues.
But you indicated that you would try to make that southern connection accessible?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions to my left? All right, then it's time to go to the public for comment. Even though we know who you are, you can still give us your name and have your say.
Great. Hi, I'm Greg Alexander. I got 2 issues. One, hopefully you actually are going to be able to do something about, but I don't honestly know the procedure. You guys asked about continuance of parking while it's under construction, so I hope you're not surprised that I ask about continuance of sidewalks while it's under construction, because so far we have had, for the tech park, we've had some road development there, like 10th Street had some work, and oh goodness, Maker Way had some work, and Rogers, the bike lane got realigned and the Beeline crossing got improved, and it's a big improvement, but because of that work, for an entire year, that bike lane was gone. And for an entire year, that sidewalk from the Beeline north to 11th Street on the east side of Rogers was gone. Like, no detours, no Jersey barriers to walk in the street, just gone. And with construction on the other side of the street as well, my kids were walking in the street sometimes going to Fairview. So I really hope that, especially towards the end of the project, when subcontractors start showing up, that we don't have scissor jacks appearing in the middle of the Beeline and stuff like that. And hopefully that's something that can be addressed in a planned fashion instead of simply as a complaints issue later on. And the other issue is the general concern about supply of parking. If this project meant that we would not have a bunch of little excessive parking lots, I would be entirely for it. But so far, since the tech park has been designed, there have been 2 major projects that I know of, both housing. There's the affordable housing, the PEDCOR project, just on the west side of Rogers at 10th Street, and that has its own parking lot. And then there's also behind Upland, there's Park on Morton. I don't actually know how many bedrooms that is, but I trespassed, I guess. I counted their parking garage. It has 383 spaces. And so, we're still, so I counted it. I went 9 times in the middle of the night, in the evening, in the afternoon, in the morning. And the peak occupancy I found, I knew this would be the peak occupancy, and I was right. I went the night of Little 500, just the absolute peak, people visiting and getting drunk and hopefully staying with their friends. And it reached 200 units out of 383 were full, just over 50%. So we have massively overbuilt parking already within the tech park. And so we haven't really reached that goal of consolidating parking just with the projects so far. And, I counted the whole square between 6th and College and 12th and Rogers. And I found every parking garage there. Most of them are private. And I found 1,700 spaces. And the peak occupancy I found, and that's the peak at each garage. So one garage is full in the day and the other garage is full at night. That's residential garage versus commercial garage. So actual peak was much lower than this. But the peak across all the garages was 1,190 cars. So there were, out of 1,700, so there were 500 empty spaces, period, just that never get used. You could just remove those 500 spaces and they would be not missed. Now, managing that, because these are private garages, though they aren't all like the The city owns a garage, 7th and Morton, 522 spaces. The peak I've ever seen there is 359. The last time the city wanted to build a bunch of parking garages, BTOP went and counted that garage and found that it was about the same. So we have a bunch of empty spaces that we aren't utilizing, and it'd be difficult to utilize those spaces. But on the other hand, we're just building another parking garage that's going to mostly sit empty, and that's really depressing. Thanks.
Thank you. I am going to, oh, please, come on. Sorry, go ahead. We're still in public comment. I didn't realize you were going to get up, Jim.
Okay.
Go for it.
Hello. Good evening. Jim Murphy, president of CFC. Joe, congratulations, and we appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Well deserved. We are your neighbor, literally on the other side of that wall. CFC owns that third of this building. 1976, Bill and Gail Cook purchased the Cochran House that's at the corner of 8th and Rogers Street and renovated it. In 1987, they purchased a John Figg food warehouse and distribution center. That's now the Antique Mall. At that time, in that era, this area of the community was very depressed. You know, the railroad track was still intact at that time and active. The Cooks had the vision to see what this could be in the future, and we're seeing that take place now. And we're really excited about what this area can be as it continues to grow, as the Trades District continues to be built out. We thank you for the question about construction. Not only is CFC housed in this section behind you, but we also have a number of tenants, commercial tenants that are there, and they employ a lot of people. And quite frankly, a number of those employees work from home. So they do not use the parking space because they don't need to use that parking space. We have our lot filled, but we also provide parking west of Rogers Street of other parking space that we own, and we utilize that as well. I want to acknowledge the gracious reaching out of the hand of the city of Bloomington, Deputy Mayor Mick Reneisen and Alex Crowley, both, you heard from them both tonight. They reached out to us early on in the process and in the design phase of this project. You heard earlier that we requested a relocation of the restroom facilities, and they did take that under consideration and made that change. We are still working with them on ongoing parking during construction and after construction, because we do want to make sure that we have adequate parking then. And our trash dumpster area, we've been having conversations about that, and also our cooling tower that happens to sit kind of right in the middle of that parking lot over there. So it's a bit of a challenge also. So I think it's important that you know that we've been working with them and they with us on trying to work out these issues, these details. It's very important to us that this continue to grow. As I said earlier, we are supportive of the parking garage. We are also very supportive of historic preservation or historic character, as you probably are also aware of. So the design of the parking garage is acceptable to us as well. We do want to make sure that we continue to have consistency within this area, and that the Beeline also is a tremendous asset that we want to maintain. So I like the fact that there is a retail that's also included in the parking garage as well. We do not have our agreements finished yet. However, I will say that our conversations, our negotiations are very, very positive, and I want you to be aware of that, and we do support this garage. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like, yes. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Pearl, and I'm the president of the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. And first, I wanted to thank you very much for all of the attention and time that you're spending on issues like these. One of the items that we wanted to emphasize was the ability to add employment to our core in the city, knowing that wage growth is incredibly important to our community. This is an opportunity, an area for growth, especially with the talent pool that's coming in through the university and other places, and that this is a really important part of the tech park and the plan for growth in the Trades District. So the ability to add density in that area and add employment density in that area, so offices and others don't have to be spread out and can be much closer to, places that they may be doing business with downtown is very important to us as well. So we appreciate the consideration that everyone is giving here, and knowing that this is part of a long-term plan for growth, knowing that the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation works with the city and other partners around the community to attract more employment to this area, to support our community. It's a very important project, and we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak to this petition this evening? Okay, before we come back to the commission, there was one question asked during public comment that I think I should refer to staff and just get an answer for, and that's the question of will there be a way to maintain pedestrian and bicycle access during the construction period for this project? I believe that was the gist of one of the questions asked.
So I can certainly attempt that, and the petitioner can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't foresee that there would probably be any impacts to the Rogers Street sidewalk system. The Beeline Trail, I would imagine, as well would be unimpacted. 10th Street sidewalk certainly could be along the south side, but we did put in sidewalks along both sides of 10th Street, so there should still be pedestrian access through this area. Certainly the internal drives will be heavily tore up during all of this construction, but I would imagine Rogers Street and the Beeline Trail would be unimpacted.
And as far as 10th Street South Side is concerned, could that be signed, or in some ways people can be directed to cross to the north side at the appropriate crosswalk?
Yes, certainly if there's a sidewalk that is closed, we will have a pedestrian walk around and directional signs directing them to that walk around prior to, encountering the close. So it would direct them to an approved crossing location, probably right there where 10th Street and Rogers interact.
Okay. All right, then we are back to the commission with, yes?
Procedural comment here. So I wasn't aware, so I work at Cook Medical.
Okay.
And so, but CFC is in a completely different SBU that reports to Cook Group than Cook Medical, and I believe I can be very impartial in my decision here today.
As long as you do not have a
I have no
financial interest,
I have
and as
no
long
financial
as
interest
you are
whatsoever.
comfortable with that's a decision that you're certainly free to make.
Yep, I have no financial interest whatsoever. I just
Okay.
want to be made aware that two separate business units.
Appreciate
no
the
issue.
honesty, and we will continue then. So it's now time for a motion and discussion and final vote.
SP 3119 for the City of Bloomington, site plan approval to allow the construction of a new parking garage in the commercial downtown zoning district.
And that's, I assume that's with the
With the
conditions
three
of approval?
conditions indicated in the staff report, yes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any final comments, Jillian?
I'll just say I think this is a great project, and I appreciate the attention to the sawtooth design replication and where appropriate. And I think it's, while it is a parking garage, I realize, so I don't want to make too much of a wonderful thing, but I do think that this is a better use than the current surface lot that's available. So we're turning a surface lot into something a little better, or something much, much greener that I very much appreciate. And I really like the attention to bicycle parking, and think that's at least a way to accommodate mutual interests. And the green building and solar panels are particularly attractive. And I think this is very important to promote development in the certified tech park. So all of those things are great. I appreciate, again, Mr. Alexander's comments and concerns about making accommodations for people to continue to be able to walk through this area. I think now we've increased the walkability of this space. We've made it really a delightful space to walk through. I just hope that construction doesn't cut off any of that improved walkability for that space. And I'm looking forward to learning more, perhaps from the ParkSmart operations here, about some of the management of this facility. So there might be some improvements to our understandings about the peak use time through the ParkSmart options. So I hope that we can do that and clear up these concerns about space that goes unused in parking garages. So I'm happy about this, and I look forward to seeing it come to fruition.
Any other comments on my left?
The issue of how much parking we're building. I recognize that parking is needed in order to build out an area that we're trying to attract more business and economic activity, and that this is probably a little bit more voodoo than science when you're trying to plan parking around a city, but it would just be helpful going forward. I think this project is very attractive for all the reasons that Jillian's mentioning. But it would be useful because I know we have other garage issues that are going to be coming before us to get as good data as the city has available on what we've got, what is being used, what isn't being used, the locations, and it would certainly help me, if not the commission as a whole, better understand how to evaluate some of these other parking projects that are going to be coming back before us. So, thanks.
All right. Any comments on my right?
First, I walk this every day right there on the Beeline. I'm really happy that you're going to preserve what's in place now. It's pretty beautiful down there when those flowers bloom, and some people might see that they're weeds, but they're native, and it's real nice through that area. And then I want to echo the comment that was made with the connectivity to the south. I hear that you're going to look into that and try to eliminate those 9-inch risers. Because, no need to have steps, especially if it's feeding to the Beeline. You can probably get people to swing down there and just take the bike right to the plaza. If it's doable, that would be great. And I hope that the construction doesn't disturb the area either, because just from a county perspective, we're doing a lot of trail development that's going to feed into that area of the Beeline, and eventually get to the Karst Greenway, and plans to get all the way to the town of Ellettsville. So that could be a critical area for connectivity for multimodal purposes. So, thank you.
I just want to say thank you to the petitioner and really the city for working. At the end of the day, this is a garage, right? But Mr. Alexander brings up fantastic points about the amount of parking that we have in the city, and I think a more comprehensive study needs to be taken into consideration as we make these decisions. If we're doing all this building, if we're anticipation of growth, I'd like that to be part of your presentation to us, because I just would hate to build, but this is, for all intents and purposes, this is going to fit the area extremely well. It's going to service a lot of potential industry, and I like the public art aspect as well. So, thanks.
Thank you. I offer strong support for this necessary and very thoughtful infrastructure development. This project is going to help improve the economic development in the Trades District. This is something that we all know offers a lot of promise here for attracting good business opportunities, good jobs that are also necessary for the good health of the city. And I know not a lot of support offered for a garage per se, but in terms of the necessary parking, I would much rather it go up than out when we're trying to develop density in the core that we all see a lot of promise, have seen it for many years. Good to see the CSO architects and the people from CORE, who I've had the privilege of working with for both of these garage structures as they come forward. They do good work, and everyone needs to be commended for getting it to this place. Thank you.
All right, if there's no further comment, then it's time for a roll call vote. The motion is for approval upon conditions.
Kinsey.
Yes.
Kappas.
Yes.
Sandberg.
Yes.
Kate.
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Copper.
Yes.
Motion is approved, and we are adjourned.